Puente Grande Prison is a very strong prison in Mexico. There are lots of guards there, with 2 guards for each prisoner. This prison is for the most dangerous criminals in Mexico, especially the leaders of drug gangs. These are not normal criminals. They are the leaders of big gangs with lots of weapons. Because of this, the prison is very well protected with strong walls, watchtowers, armed guards, and checkpoints. It's like a military base. El Chapo, the most famous drug lord in Mexico's history, was held in this prison. He was the leader of the Sinaloa cartel, which is the most dangerous drug gang in the world. Even though El Chapo was in prison, he still controlled his gang by bribing the guards and officers. He lived comfortably in prison, getting whatever he wanted, including alcohol, women, and food. He even continued to run his gang from inside the prison. One of the prison officials, Damaso Lopez, helped El Chapo a lot. He took bribes and became like El Chapo's right-hand man, making sure El Chapo was comfortable in prison. El Chapo even managed to develop a new way of smuggling drugs while in prison through underground tunnels. With the help of engineers and specialists, El Chapo's gang dug tunnels to smuggle drugs, making them a lot of money. El Chapo was always worried about being extradited to the United States, where the prisons are much harder to escape from. So, he planned an escape from Puente Grande prison. He bribed guards and workers, and on January 19, 2001, he escaped through a tunnel that led from his cell to outside the prison. After escaping, El Chapo continued to run his drug empire, becoming even more powerful. He controlled a huge amount of drug trafficking between Mexico and the United States. The authorities tried hard to catch him, but he evaded capture for 14 years. Eventually, in 2014, the authorities caught up with El Chapo and arrested him again. This time, they took him to a maximum security prison called Altiplano. It's like a fortress with lots of guards, watchtowers, and strong walls. But even from there, El Chapo managed to escape through another tunnel, showing how cunning and resourceful he was. The first part of the plan was to buy land near the prison where they could dig a tunnel without attracting attention. Finding a suitable spot was hard because the prison was in an isolated area surrounded by farmland. After a long search, they found an empty construction site about 1.5 miles away. It was perfect because it looked like a regular building project. They bought the land and registered it under a non-suspicious name. But knowing exactly where El Chapo's cell was and how to get him out without being caught was tricky. The only blind spot was a small shower area behind a wall. So, they needed to smuggle a GPS device to El Chapo, who would place it in the shower. This would help the tunnel diggers find the right spot. Getting the GPS inside the prison was tough because of tight security. El Chapo's wife came up with the idea to hide it in a watch. She managed to get the watch to him without raising suspicion. With the GPS in place, they started digging the tunnel. It was a massive project, with dozens of workers involved. They had to install ventilation, lighting, and even a rail system to move sand out of the tunnel. Finally, after months of work, the tunnel was almost ready. El Chapo chose the 4th of July as his escape date, wanting to taunt the Americans. But the tunnel still needed some finishing touches, so they postponed the escape to a week later. On the night of July 11, 2015, El Chapo made his move. While his men created a distraction, he slipped into the tunnel and rode a cart to freedom. He then made his way to a waiting truck and eventually escaped to a safe house. But his freedom didn't last long. 6 months later, Mexican forces raided another safe house and captured him again. This time, they put him in a high-security prison in the U.S. Despite multiple escape attempts, El Chapo remains behind bars, serving a life sentence. His days of running his drug empire are over, and now he spends most of his time in solitary confinement.